Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we all doing? Welcome to the Pricing for Profit webinar, the first of many to come. So thank you very much for taking the time out of your evening to listen to myself. My name's Wayne Bettis and my co-host, Mr. Andy Jones. How you doing, Andy?
Good. Hope everyone is well. Thanks for joining, everyone.
Good. So this is actually the first time we've done a webinar with this software. We've tested it. Everything should be fine. If there are any problems, please post in the comments. And if you have any questions as we go through this evening, again, please post in the comments. We will try our best to answer and help as many people as possible. But we have created a WhatsApp group for after the webinar. So make sure you join that to stay in the loop with everything that we're doing. So the key objective today is quite simple, really. There's a few things that from our perspective, we want to help you hardworking tradespeople to achieve. And fundamentally, it is to get a handle on the numbers in your business. I want you to leave tonight with the tools and the knowledge to be able to price jobs, not just to survive, not just to make a living, but to actually make profit. So that is ultimately the main goal. Whilst doing that, I'm hoping you're going to pick up a bit of knowledge around the back end of managing a business, the costs involved in staff, hiring staff and buying materials and everything that comes in between it. Have I missed anything there, Andy?
No, I think obviously the fundamentals we're going to cover, which is making sure you're pricing the right work. We're not going to delve too deep into sort of podcast territory of conversations we've had before about why people generally charge what they charge. The purpose of this is to get people charging what they need to charge and what they would like to charge as a business. So from a basic perspective in terms of you need to charge this to survive. This is what kind of profit you should be aiming for. And then you may have your own ideal outcome in terms of profit, best case scenario, to really want to move the business and your personal life forward.
Yeah, I echo that. And what prompted this is those that are on social media will have seen countless discussions around pricing, what people are charging, where in the country, etc. And that set me down a pathway to understand numbers better. And what I realized is that I was a victim of it myself. I looked at myself a few years ago and realized that I was pricing based on what I felt was the right thing to price, not based on any actual data or information. It was like, well, that's what feels right, or that's what Dave down the road charges. So it sent me down a pathway of looking into, and I tried all different spreadsheets and bits and bobs to try and help me along the way. But fundamentally, I couldn't find anything that sort of resonated with me. So in typical Wayne fashion, I created my own little software, which is completely free, by the way. So I'm not trying to sell you it. We'll share that shortly. And I'm going to go through the tool itself. And as we're going through the tool, it will obviously prompt discussion points for myself and Andy. And then hopefully if we get any comments coming in, we can address that too. Before we start all of that, I just want to quickly introduce myself. So my name's Wayne. I've been in the industry, in the plumbing and heating industry specifically for, gosh, I'm a veteran now, 20 odd years, ran businesses that have thrived and some that have failed along the way. I think I've been running businesses now for 16 of those 20 odd years. So I'm very experienced with running a trades business. On top of that, I also run Off the Tools now with Andy as well, which coaches and helps support tradesmen across the UK. So that's just a very quick introduction to who I am. Andy, would you like to just introduce yourself and then we'll crack on?
Yeah, so I've had, while probably a similar amount of time in the industry to Wayne, maybe not quite as long in terms of running a business. I was an employee for quite a long time. I left the industry for a little bit of time, learned about things like this, running a business in a different industry, came back and I started my own heating business. It's just been about 3 years now. And with working with Wayne as well before I came on board with Off the Tools. Basically grew that business at what's probably in the trades industry deemed to be quite a fast pace. So we've now got we do home care service plans. We've got multiple members of staff in the office, multiple members out in the field, things like that. And that business basically runs itself now because I've got the staff to do it. But that I've been able to do that because I've always priced as we should price. And then it allows you to make those decisions that you can't really make when you're undercharging and you're kind of chasing your tail. Charging correctly not only puts more money in your pocket, it produces options for you, whether that's from a personal perspective for you and your family, whether it's you want to do more holidays per year, or it gives you the option to grow the business like I did, grow it at a pace where you can then outsource the running of the business mostly and within a few years and create more freedom and choice for you, which is equally as important to a lot of guys, especially those with young kids, as it is to obviously making more money to buy nice things. So you know, obviously extra profit essentially gives you choice, and you can do with it what you will.
Bang on. Right, let's get to the meat of it then, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm just going to quickly add a screen to my screen. So hopefully you can all see the website for the pricing calculator. I will make sure if Andy can put that in the comments for those that aren't already on it. You can just create an account nice and simply. At any point, please ask any questions that might pop up. If we don't address them tonight, then we will definitely address them in the WhatsApp chat at a later date. Same for you, Andy. You know me, mate. You know I can just waffle and waffle and waffle. So at any point, Andy, when you need to interject, just shout at me, all right? And I'll try and not talk too fast. I know that's a bad habit of mine. So here we go. So the pricing calculator. This was born out of multiple spreadsheets, multiple attempts to get a handle on the numbers in my business. And for me, I don't know about yourself, but for me, I needed something visual. So looking at a spreadsheet that's just line items and numbers, I just can't, my brain just doesn't allow me to sort of digest the information. So I took the time to sort of build something that was quite visually pleasing. So obviously, if you're a new user, remember this is a walkthrough as well as sort of coaching along the way. So I'm going to go step by step. So for a new person, you would just create the account. For me, obviously, I'm going to log in. There's a few different menus on my version because I'm obviously the admin. But fundamentally, this is what you're going to be greeted with. It's going to be a blank canvas. Obviously, there's going to be no data in here. Up in the top right-hand corner here, you can start to go through the onboarding guide. Obviously, you won't see admin dashboard. That's just for me. Team management. So if you've got a team or if you've got anyone else in the business that you want to have access to this, then you can simply add a team member. You can share it and earn some rewards. You can request a feature. So this isn't sort of done and never going to be touched again. If you have an idea or you think something could work better or worse or whatever, you can request that. You can go into settings and adjust a few of the basic settings, which I'll come back to in a sec. Then there's a help. So if you click that, that will just come through to my WhatsApp. And then there's a button to join the main alliance group, should you wish, which just takes you to the website. So when you logged in, you're probably best off to make sure all your data is correct. So just make sure your name, business, and all of the fundamentals are in place. And then it's really a matter of, if you go through the onboarding, I'm not going to spend the next 10 minutes going through the onboarding. That's something you can do in your personal time. But fundamentally, first of all, we land in the dashboard, which, like I said, is going to be blank. But over time, you'll start to see some graphs appear with some information, and then some data based on the numbers that you put in will come down here. Obviously, at the moment, your one is going to be empty. But what we always start with, so this tool was built for sole traders and limited companies. So there's a few settings that you need to make sure that you set up correctly in the settings area, which was back here. Where is it? Team management. And then when you manage them, you can set whether you're PAYE, limited company, whatever it all is. So what I always say to start with is go into the overhead section. So sorry to reverse back again. This has a functionality to record your personal overheads. And the reason I've done that is because many of the people that will use this tool are going to be a sole trader. So their personal overheads are quite important to the amount that the business has to charge. So if you're a sole trader, definitely use the personal overhead. So you put in things like your mortgage, your council tax, all your personal outgoings, which will make more sense as we go through. If you're a limited company, maybe not so important, but still, it's just a good bit of housekeeping to get on top, see what your personal overheads are, so you can start to see what your liabilities are and what money you need to make in the business. Then we scroll down to the more important one, which is the business overheads. So in here, you need to add all of the things that the business has to pay for to operate. Okay, so things like bounce back loans, software, coaching, accounting, fuel, van insurance, phone bills, any marketing that you're locked into a contract with, even if it's a variable amount. So say fuel, you don't know exactly what you're going to be spending, but you can guesstimate roughly based on previous months what you're spending. So you need to add all of those business overheads in here. I'm going to jump back to here in a sec, but I just want to go through the main tabs just to kickstart it. So once you've got your overheads in, you need to start looking at the wages and or profit that you want to make. So when you come into here, you have the ability to add roles. So if it's just you, you would just obviously add you put the title as owner, and then what is it that you want to earn out of the business. So this is where I've tried to make it as simple as possible, but it can get a little bit confusing if you don't fully understand. So I've called it a salary. Okay. But if you've selected that you're a limited company, the system knows that you're not going to pay that full amount in salary. It's going to be split between dividends and the 12,500 tax-free allowance. But don't worry yourself with that. The system looks after that. So I always say, as a minimum, you should be paid what you would earn as an engineer as a bare minimum. Yeah. So in my area, the average salary would be about £45,000, but I'm going to be classed as the business owner. So you can see here, it breaks it down. So in reality, you're going to pay yourself a 12.5 grand salary, and the rest is going to be dividends. But let's just use round numbers just to keep the progress smooth. If we start using decibels, it will start getting confused. Then we have a very important button here, income generating role. So for an engineer, obviously it's going to be income generating. Okay. If you are adding an office person, then it's not an income generating role. And that becomes important because this whole calculator works off the amount of hours that you're going to have to charge for. So in reality, you should all be getting at least 4 weeks holiday. So that's why it starts at 48. But if we're being honest, we're probably going to take more than that. And then we have to factor in sick, if you're poorly, if you've got to pick the kids up. All of these different things actually reduce the amount of weeks, days, and hours that we can charge. So don't be too rough with it, because it'll affect the pricing massively, but try and be realistic. I reckon realistically, for most people, you're looking somewhere between 40 and 44 working weeks of the year, the time you factor in all of the sort of problems that may occur, with jobs overrunning, so you lose a day there, being ill for a couple of days here, pick kids off sick, etc. So let's just, for this example, I'm just going to go for 44. Most people work 5 days a week, but obviously this is personalized to you. So if you know that you work 6 days a week, put 6 days. If you know you only want to work 4 days, put 4 days. But in this example, I'm going to put 5 days. Then we come to the amount of hours in those days, in those weeks, that we can charge for. So this is where it becomes very unique to your business. So if you're let's pick a trade, a plasterer, okay? Realistically, you're not charging by the hour. You're probably charging by the half day, or it might even be just a fixed price for the job. For the smaller, the businesses that do smaller works like electricians, heating engineers, where plumbers, where you're doing like multiple jobs, this is where the billable hours needs to be quite on point, because it does hugely affect the numbers. So a working day consists of 8 hours on average. But if you're jobbing about, the chances that you can bill for every single one of those hours is quite slim. You know, you've got traffic, you've got travel, you've got quoting time, etc., etc. From my experience, I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of people across the UK. I feel a conservative estimate realistically is 5 hours. For some of you, you might think, no way, that we definitely get 7. Then put 7. If you trust that that's realistic for you, go with you. But just from my experience, I'm going to put 5 in here for now. So when I save that role, they're going to be added into the system here. So you can see this is the card that I've just added. And then you basically do that for yourself to start with, and you set yourself as the owner. And then if I was to, let's go in here and just edit this one. If I was to put, so this one is a PAYE job. So obviously it factors the tax and everything in as you're going. And this guy is an apprentice, so there's no income generating hours associated to him. But then I've got an engineer here, which if I just go into edit, it's not set there. So again, realistically, I'm going to go 44.55. And the reason this is important, because when we flick back over to the dashboard, you'll start to see this break things down into hourly rates and daily rates and everything like that. So it's very, very important that you put those billable hours in for the staff that get the opportunity to bill. The real-time numbers and analytics, these are features that are coming soon, so I'm not going to go into that tonight. You guys won't actually see that. You won't be able to click on that. It's only because I'm logged in as an admin. If we go back to the dashboard now, you can start to see there's some data here, okay? And then it breaks it down into survival rate, reality rate, and desired rate, okay? So let me just quickly explain what they are. So survival rate is the bare minimum it will cost you to run your life and your business with nothing, no salaries, nothing like that. Just the bare minimum that it costs to run. That's why putting your personal overheads in is important, because this is like worst case scenario. So let's imagine COVID happens again, and you've still got to pay out for your van lease. You've still got to pay out for your fuel, maybe not fuel, but like your insurances and everything. And you've still got obviously your own mortgage and everything to pay for. So the survival rate is a bit of a like worst case scenario. And when you're using this, if you've got staff that are on PAYE, your survival rate will be very high, because it's factoring in that you've still got to pay them the salary, but you're not, there's not billable hours associated with it. So this is more designed at the one-man band person, that basically worst case scenario. Then we get to the more exciting bit, which is the reality rate. So the reality rate is really where everybody, once you plug your numbers in, if you're not at the reality rate, then you're doing something wrong, and you need to work out what that is. And hopefully, once you've run through this exercise yourself, you will see that it's probably going to be something to do with the pricing or the billable hours that is causing that problem. But what the reality rate factors in. So now this reality rate forgets your personal overhead. The personal overhead was literally just for that survival rate, just as a bit of an indicator. Once we get into here, the business overheads are factored in, plus the wages and earnings. So you've obviously put your own, what you want to earn out of the business, which is why it's called the reality rate, because you as a minimum should be earning enough to pay yourself as an engineer at the very minimum. I would argue it should be a lot more, which is why we then have the desired rate. Before we move on, some of you with an eagle eye, hopefully some of you are on a laptop. If you're on a phone, it might be a little bit more difficult to see. But there is loads of calculations down here that break down everything, because it's factoring in your tax liabilities, your NI liabilities. So that's whether you've got PAYE staff or whether it's corporation tax. Plus it also factors in the estimated dividend tax that you will owe if you were to take that money that you put in the previous step. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. So I know that's a lot of information to gather in, but moving on to the desired rate. So now this is where this is where we all should be at the desired rate, because this now starts to factor in a profit that the business wants to make. Okay, so if I go back down to the wages area, in here, we can now set on top of, so obviously, if you notice here, I'm already put in 45 grand here that I'm going to earn as a minimum. And then now you have the choice to go percentage or fixed amount. I personally would go fixed amount. And then ask yourself the question, at the end, this time next year, what would you be happy to have earned on top of the 45 grand that we've already allowed for? What would you be happy with to earn? And that's a personal choice. You know, if you want to, if you was to nick an extra 20 grand and you would be happy on that, great. If you're greedy like me and would like to make 50 grand on top of that, then stick 50 grand in. Because once we get to the desired rate, it starts to factor in all of the salaries plus this profit. Because ultimately, guys, we are in business to make money. We're not in business just to make a living. Some people are, you know, some people are quite happy ticking along, you know, but the fact that you're sitting here tonight on a random Tuesday night, listening to me and Andy, well, mainly me at the minute, so sorry, Andy, listening to me chat about pricing tells me that you want more out of your business. So make sure you're ambitious with the profit, because there's got to be a reward. There's got to be a reward for all the hard work, all the risk, all the struggle that we go through as business owners. And then down here, we've got a bit of a breakdown. So it starts to factor in. So if you're anyone that's good at maths, probably better than me, I've put 50K in here and then I've put 45K in here. So the system is splitting that up for me. So as a company, it sees it as profit and then it gives me estimations. Bear in mind, you know, I'm not a chartered accountant. These are used for guidance only. So please don't rely 100% on this, but you're going to be 95% there at the very least. It's going to tell you what your corporation tax bill is likely to be, what your personal tax based on the drawings out of the business. And then it also gives you a little bit of an effective tax rate, which is just interesting, you know, a bit of interesting data. And then as we scroll down here, you start to see the parameters that the system is basing all of this on. So in this example, you've got the owner that is working 44 weeks a year, 5 days a week, billing 5 hours. Then you've got the engineer that's doing the same. So obviously, the more staff you've got, the more working parameters that are going to be included. This was built for the UK. Okay. So originally I just done it under United Kingdom law. Then we had Tom from Jersey join. So I had to make an adaptation for Jersey tax because they tax things completely different. But I'm pretty sure from looking at the registrations, everybody else is going to be UK, so you shouldn't need to change that. But if you are based in Jersey, you would flick that over to Jersey, and then it changes because they don't charge corporation tax. They tax on a personal level, and there's all different bits, but there's no point me going into that. Oh, right, let's breathe a sec.
Just why you catch your breath? Why you catch your breath? Just scroll back down again to the liabilities. So this is such a key bit of information. As I say, as Wayne said, it is for guidance, not for tax advice. But most guys sort of, it gets to end of tax year, they hand the receipts in and sort of like, oh shit, what's it going to be? What's it going to be? And it's like most guys don't have a clue what it's going to be. And then the tax bill comes and like, oh, fuck. So what this allows you to do is start to put a bit of a contingency in place. And use something like a pot system or, you know, profit first kind of style and start to square a bit of money away into a separate account that is literally dedicated for paying something like your corporation tax. So it's a little bit of, you know, you can kind of see the future a little bit and you don't have to sort of just hand your receipts in and then grimace while you wait. It gives you a bit of predictability to what that costing is going to be. Yeah, it might not be perfect, but it's going to be pretty much in that ballpark. You know, you don't want to think it's going to be $2,000 and then it turns out to be 10. If you're expecting it to be 10 and it's 11 or it's 9, then you know you're pretty much already there. So yeah, just a little 10 cents on that.
That definitely, it becomes very, very handy information because it just makes you more prepared for anything that might be thrown at you. So that brings me on Boom, right? Little question. Hopefully some of you can comment on in the comment section so we know we're not talking to ourselves. Hands up or put yes if you've ever gone to that little old lady, you was there 10 minutes and you said, oh, just bung us 20 quid, and you've not stuck to your gun and charged what you should charge. Come on, it can't just be me. I can't be the only nice guy in the UK. Let's see if anyone has. I can't see the comments because I'm on the wrong screen. Yeah. So we've definitely got Scott. I know I've done it wrong. Yeah. It's one of the most, we do it. And then, you sort of like can't stop your tongue saying it. You shouldn't say it, but you do. And again, one of the reasons why this tool is very important, because if I jump back now, so now we've put all that data in, okay, we can look at this dashboard and we can start to see what we have to charge. And I call this a price throttle. Okay. So really you should be not ever touching the survival rate, but what you can start to do is throttle between your reality rate, because that's in essence the minimum that you can charge. And then you can throttle up to your desired rate. And what I mean by throttle up is have adaptive pricing. So if it's the middle of winter and you're flat out, why won't you be charging more? And when you can justify that charging, even if that justification is in your own head, and I'll dive a little bit deeper on that quickly, because a lot of us feel that the customer is going to think we're ripping them off, right? And if you are a rip-off merchant, they're not good. I hope you feel like that. But if you're honest and you're hardworking and you take the time to fill this calculator out, you're not ripping them off. You know that you're just making a fair profit for the work, risk, and stress that comes with running a business. So don't be scared to adapt your pricing as long as it's within the reality rate and within the desired rate. Then it's all good to have a supply and demand model. We reduce our prices in spring because we know we're not that sought after. But come October, guess what? We ramp it straight back up. And yes, we get the odd comment from the customer that notices, but the vast majority never even blink an eyelid at it. But big caveat here, right? The information that this tool is going to give you is only as good as the information, the data that you put in. So if you just pull figures out your ass, it's going to give you rubbish information because it's not going to be real. So when you come to filling this out, you need to spend time thinking about it and go through all the easy stuff. Your overheads in your business, any rent that you pay for the business, all of that stuff is easy. But there's a bit of an extra layer to this because we all know that we're going to mess up on a job, yeah, and maybe damage a carpet, or the van's going to break and we're going to have a couple of grand new clutch and gearbox or whatever it might be, or someone's going to have a bang in and knock down a wall and you're going to need to pay to get it rebuilt. All of these things happen in the business, and very rarely does a small business have that factored into their model. And I call it phantom costs, okay? Because they're a little bit of a phantom. You don't know exactly what might happen, but the drill's going to break or something is going to happen. So when you're adding your overheads in, make sure when you add an overhead, make sure you add one for a few phantom things that might just happen. Because I don't know about you, I'd much rather have a couple of extra grand in the bank at the end of the year than have to find a couple of grand that I haven't got at the end of the year to pay something that's gone wrong on the van or a new drill or whatever might happen. So don't underestimate the importance of putting in phantom costs. And then what I want to show you now is the effects of things that happen. Okay. So obviously this has all been pre-filled in. So you can see the survival rate is 44. Desired rate is 81. These aren't live figures, by the way, so don't take this as any reference. This is just a play account just for me to throw information in. And then we've got our desired rate at 108. So let's play hypothetical here, because this tool can also be used as a bit of a forecaster to predict what might happen if you make certain decisions in the business. So let's say, right, I've been talked into by some marketing guru to do some Google ads, right? And he wants to charge me $3,000 a month, $2,000 on ads, $1,000 on management fees, or whatever it might be. Let's plug that in and see what effect that would have on the business. So let's call this test Google ads. All right. You can choose a category. This is again just for the graphs and charts. So let's say we're going to go 3,000 quid, and the price excludes VAT. So I've just added a overhead to the business. So what we should see, and this is where I'm praying that the calculator works. We should now, when we go back here, you can see there's a big difference now in the charge, the free rate. So originally it was 44, 82 and 104 or whatever it was. But by making that decision to sign up for that pretend Google Ads account, you can see the effect it has on the hourly rate. If that still fits within what you can charge in your area, because every area is different, but every area can build up that price. So don't be scared to up your price. But basically, you can use it to see if it's affordable. Yeah. If in your area, if you think it's impossible to charge 124 quid, then two things. One, I don't believe you, which I'm going to hopefully Andy will step in a minute and explain why we don't believe you. But if genuinely you feel like you can't, or for whatever reason, then you can't make that decision to invest in that marketing, you know? And then you could do the same here for engineers. So let's say you're sitting there, you're either a one-man band, or maybe you've got a couple of guys on the road and you're like, I really need someone in the office. I really need the phones being dealt with. Not sure if you can afford it. So you can play the same game here. You can add a role. So let's call this test office. What's minimum wage roughly nowadays? 26 grand, something like that for a full-time office person, which is absolutely crazy. In my head, it's still like 15 grand. So if anyone wants to check me on that, it is for a full-time job. It's about 26.5K now. So let's put these costs in. They're PAYE. Obviously, for this specific test, they're not income generating. So let's save that role. Okay. And then if we jump back to the dashboard now, we're now going to see the effect that hire will have on the business. So you'll notice it didn't change the survival rate because that's not factored into that part. But it has changed the reality rate and the desired rate. So again, before you make that call to make any big investment in the business, whether it be an equipment, whether it be marketing, whether it be a staff member, you can plug those numbers in and see what effect it has on those rates that you should be charging. And what I skipped here, but hopefully you guys can all see this, is that it does break it down into daily, weekly, and monthly. So for some of the questions I had was, oh, well, I don't price things by the hour and I don't think price things by the day. Which yes and no, I sort of like, I understand. But if you do just price things, somewhere in that equation to get to a price, you will be working out how many man hours it's taking or how many man days it's taking. So the principles still all stack up, whether you are charging hourly, daily, or just a fixed price for said job. Because you know you've only got so many hours in the day that you can actually charge. You might not be showing that to the customer. And generally, I don't say to a customer that's 2 hours work. I'll say to the customer that's 240 quid or whatever it might be. So let's now add a income generating member of staff, because again, this is great to play around with and try and work out if it's affordable. So let's add another engineer. So engineer test. Let's say I'm going to pay this guy £47,500 because he's a top G and he's going to smash it. Now I need to set him as income generating. And again, I've got to be realistic. He's going to have 4 weeks holiday, probably a week's worth of training, maybe a week off sick over the course of the year, and then maybe some jobs overrunning, etc., etc. And then I'm going to go 5 hours, 5 days and 5 hours. So now I've added, oh, something popped up. Another member of staff. But what I've also done, hopefully anyone that is keeping up will understand this, I've now got another set of billable hours. Yeah. So think of it as stock in the shop. Yeah. So before I added this new engineer, I had 2,200 billable hours over the course of the year. By adding this engineer, I've now increased that by another 1,100. So what I will see is actually based on that, adding that marketing person, adding that member of office staff, and now adding an engineer, it's actually started to reduce the reality rate and desired rate because I've got more availability. I can sell more hours or days to the customer. And this is really fascinating for those that are taking those first couple of steps in maybe employing and trying to level up, because generally speaking, the first hire increases the overhead, increases the rates. But then when you get to your second, third, fourth, that billable hours actually starts to shrink, which means you can either charge your customer less, which I don't advise, or you can actually start to make more profit, which obviously is the sensible and the business decision is to, if you're taking engineers on, you should be making more money. Okay, right. That is the pricing calculator. What I wanted to address next is the chargeability, so the rate that people are charging. So if you feel comfortable, please post in what roughly you charge for if you're a heating engineer, a boiler service, for example, or what you would charge for like a 1 hour's job. It would just be interesting to see what people have got, what they're charging, and ultimately we're going to get Andy to explain a little bit about the importance of pushing the boundaries on that. So feel free to post in. So I'll post what I charge in there. So hopefully you can see it. So we got, someone's just said bye. So, but hello, Essex. This is a cracking bit of work, Wayne and Andy. Thank you, Ollie. I'm just catching up with some of the comments just to see. I'm hoping Andy's been keeping on top as well. It looks like he has.
I have.
So is anyone else going to share what they charge? Just going to take a slurp of tea. So we've got a few there. So, okay, so the ones that have posted are actually charging half decent. From experience, I know there will be people watching that are charging 60, 70 quid. And after you're seeing what we're charging, you might feel like you don't want to share. So I understand that. But from the ones that are in there, they're all charging fairly decent. Andy, do you want to take the reins a little bit and just talk us through your pricing structure and why?
I'll let you catch your breath. So,
yeah, thank you.
as I said at the beginning, for anyone that missed it, so I was charging again. I was basically a full-time subcontractor for a handful of call-out companies. I did some of my own stuff, and I was charging £65 for a boiler service. I never got anywhere. The only money I was making was from the emergency call outs, but that was going out middle of the night, etc., etc. And then I had 2 kids and I couldn't do it. So I found myself I did a element of business training in a separate industry, and basically learned a lot of this sort of stuff about how you can't just pluck a price out of midair. And I did mention a little bit above that I will share the link to the podcast, primarily the pricing podcast, because it's intrinsic to the pricing calculator, because most guys tend to struggle with the mindset of pricing. By having a little listen to that, and you can hear some of the more in-depth reasons. I feel like we've not got time tonight, but pairing a change of mindset with some knowledge, and the knowledge will come from the pricing calculator, because you will learn what you need to charge. And as I mentioned a little bit further above, it's so easy to just, when you're in a job for not very long, to just say, oh yeah, just give us 40 quid or whatever it might be. The problem with that is, as I mentioned earlier on, by doing that, you're essentially giving people money for them to continue living their life, however it might be. So whether it's, they might go on a few holidays a year, because looks can be deceiving. They might have a shit car on the drive, but they might have a holiday home in Spain. You never really know. So by knocking down your pricing, you're essentially taking money out of your pocket and giving it to the customer. And nobody ever really sees it like that, because I wasn't here very long. But this pricing calculator will basically give you the knowledge to understand that the business has a charge to it, has a running cost to it. Yes, I think as sole traders, it's harder to see that, because you tend to see the money is in a direct correlation to your own money. And it is a little bit easier when you have a limited company, because you compartmentalize the money a little bit differently in that way. But if you look at it from an angle such as like, well, I'm taking money off my family to give the customer some extra money in their pocket, then you'll understand why you can't really do that. The second thing really is that, again, we speak about this in the podcast, but I'll try and run over it quick. So many guys base their pricing, and there's a question further above about why people charge what they charge. It's generally based off looking at what other people charge in the area, and then charging around that. Essentially, most guys tend to go gut shot and try and build up a customer base. But you got to remember is you're taking that data from guys that don't know, that haven't got something like a pricing calculator, haven't got a coach like me or Wayne, who just haven't learned how to charge. And what you realize is the industry, unfortunately, has been, people have taken prices from people who've taken prices from people who've taken prices, who none of them have been educated in what they should charge. So I mentioned above, and this is not to brag, the reason Wayne mentioned about me pushing the boundaries, I've kind of make it one of my purposes in life to see what we're all capable of charging. And just for reference, I'm in a small town in the Northwest. So anyone that's in a more affluent area, the Northwest and the Northeast are the cheaper, more working class areas of the UK. So as you push further south, you should arguably be charging more, but we're 199 plus VAT for our rolling hourly rate. So and the business is 3 years old. So again, I mentioned that just because I've always tried to push the boundaries to see. So, and the analogy I like to use is if you're taking your van in for a service, it probably costs you 200-300 quid or whatever it is, and they're using maybe 20 quid's worth of oil. But and they've got the van for maybe an hour. You will take the van to them, drop it off, and you'll probably sit in the waiting room while they do it. They stick it up on the ramp, they drop the oil, they change the filter, and then they give it you back. So you've done all the legwork. They've had the van for the hour and they've charged you 200 quid, and you just pay it, and that's it. That's just the cost of it. Whereas we're either sending an engineer out, or we're going out ourselves. We're using the fuel, we're using the extra travel time, which people don't charge for. And then we're only charging 70 quid or whatever it might be for the job. And then we move on to the next one. So the problem fundamentally is that the pricing has kind of been set in the industry by people who didn't know how to set pricing. That maybe gives it a bit of a more, you know what I mean? There's lots of lads in here, see 70 quid, 80 quid. Scott was charging 90 quid before he joined the Alliance. As I say, and the reason I mentioned that the business is only 3 years old is to just reiterate that for the guys that have been doing it longer, you've got even less of a reason behind charging not enough, if that makes sense. And, like Wayne said before, most of you guys are probably here because you want a little bit more. We're on a bit of a mission, really, aren't we, to just try and elevate everybody's pricing structure within the industry. Because, like Wayne said before, I bet you a lot of you guys, if you really stripped back your profit for the year, I bet you most guys are probably in the ballpark of an employed salary. So Wayne mentioned about it's a 45 grand salary. I pay my engineers 42 grand a year up in the Northwest, and they get some bonuses and some perks to the job as that as well. So they get, you got to think about it that way. If you can go and get a job where you're getting 42 grand a year plus 28 days holiday, plus, you've got that sick pay if you need it, you're probably going to get some overtime and some bonuses and things like that. My lads tend to walk away with about 45 grand a year. So if you're not making quite a bit more than that, you have to question, is it worth the sleepless nights, the running around, the going out late and things like that, if you're not making arguably, 70, 80 grand a year as a salary? Yeah. And the only way to do that really, or the most fundamental, the key way to do that is obviously on your pricing structure. And a lot of it tends to just be through mindset. And I've said this a lot of times on all the podcasts that we do. The only way to really test it is to push the boundaries. So, like Wayne always says to the new lads that come in is the next new customer that rings up tomorrow, charge more. So like you saying that, and one thing as well, Phil, that even though you've just put your prices up, just put them up again. Just keep putting them up, because you'd be really, really surprised. Because again, what a lot of lads base their pricing on, again, is not something like the price calculator. It's what I said before. It's what the other guys are charging. They'll do it, and then they'll think, well, I can't charge anymore. But maybe don't try it with your existing customers, but if you try it with your new guys, with your new customers that come in who haven't worked with you before and don't know that maybe you charged £80 last year, charge the next guy 99. Just say 99 over the phone, and you'd be amazed how many you'll convert. Because if you up your prices by 20% and you lose 10% of your customers, you're in a better place, aren't you?
Exactly that. I couldn't have said it better myself, mate. I've stuck David's question on because I think it's an important point to bring up. So you should all see that now. But basically, he's asked, should charging different rates for different areas? The simple answer, yes. If there's the opportunity to do that, maybe it's a little bit different if you're in a rural area. But if you have a big city near you, 100% be charging more to be going into those more than bigger places. What's your thoughts, Andy?
Yeah, so I've got a twofold answer to that. One, yes, but that doesn't mean that you still can't charge way more than you're charging now. Again, I mentioned I'm in the Northwest and we're charging 199 plus VAT for breakdown work, and is it 182.50 for a service plus VAT. So realistically, if you're in somewhere like, we've got a couple of lads in the Alliance that are in Tunbridge Wells, they should be, in my opinion, more along the lines of 250, 260 minimum plus VAT per hour. There's a lot more complex variables to it as well, realistically. So, for example, we're in Wigan, which is very close to Liverpool, for those that don't know the Northwest. And Liverpool is a unique area in the fact that it's incredibly, the number of houses per square mile is incredible, because it's rows and rows and rows of Edwardian Victorian style houses that are not far sort of from the docks from that era of time. So as a result, you can factor that into your pricing, because you're less likely to have to travel. So you can maybe charge a little bit more of a competitive price, as opposed to, again, I'll use Tunbridge Wells, so just mentioned it. You're going to get a lot more big houses on big plots of land, and you're not going to be able to job hop at the same rate. So to, again, give you a slightly different answer to that question, David, yes, definitely charge different areas, but also factor in density of the area as well. So, if you're living in a central location, so we don't do work, for example, in central Manchester, because it adds complexity. Again, I'll use Liverpool. If customers are ringing through that are maybe on the docks, if you've got to park your van and go up an apartment, it's going to take more time. So the pricing can be quite complex. Just to answer Craig's question, I'll let you take any more. But to answer Craig's question, yes, but I would do it on a little bit more of a gentle approach for your existing customers. So let's say you're charging £120 plus VAT now, like John is, I would maybe squeeze that up to 125. But for your new customers, I would then push it straight up to say 150 straight away. Because one fundamental piece of advice that Wayne gave me at the beginning, and I always like to pass it back on, is that a lot of guys will be worried and think, oh, my customers won't pay that price, the new price that you're thinking about implementing. But your existing customers are most likely not going to be the customers that let your business go into the future. So I've sort of coined the term of a price phase, a customer phase, sorry, when you implement your pricing increase. So you essentially are going to replace your existing customers with new customers over the next few years and beyond by just slowly, because if you think about it that way, use that example I just given, If you're 120 at the minute, you up your pricing structure to 125 for existing customers, but then you bring in 150 for new customers. If you fast forward in time, what you'll find is that when that capacity in the diary gets full, if you're starting to run close to capacity, it doesn't make logical sense to work for the older customers when you can make more for the new ones, really. So that's my.
There is a big caveat to everything we've just said about here as well, though, and it's important that we mention it. So, first of all, getting a handle on the numbers, obviously, is what the whole discussion tonight has been about. But to charge more, you have to provide a better perceived value to that customer, for it to work. So just banging your prices up and changing nothing else, yes, it will still work and hopefully still make you more money. But fundamentally, to charge at the top end of the market, you have to be doing things like using software systems like ServiceMate, Commusoft, and all of those. You have to be sending out job reminders, job confirmations. You need to be following up with customers. You need to be banking as many reviews as possible, because all of that lets you and allows you to charge more. So obviously that's for other discussions. We've got 3 more webinars planned over the next 3 months, talking about quoting, talking about software and everything. So make sure you stay tuned for those. But I just wanted to add that little bit of a caveat that getting on top of your numbers is the most important, but also making that customer perceive the value that you and the business bring is higher than average Joe down the road. On that note, has anyone got any other questions they'd like us to address tonight? Like I've said, there is a WhatsApp group available. If you scroll to the top of the this chat, you'll see it there, and I'll post it again before we close off. But I still have time for a couple of questions. I'm sure Andy does too. So if there are any specific questions based around pricing, the calculator, or just anything in general, we've got a little bit of extra time left, so we will be more than happy to answer those. Here we go.
Tyler's heard me. He's just saying anyone else pricing radiators. So just we try and avoid doing them. But basically we charge an hour for draining down and prepping, taking the old rad off, an hour to fit the new one, and an hour for filling and bleeding. An hour for filling and bleeding and dosing with some inhibitor. So that first rad is basically 3 hours labor, and then after that we would charge an hour per normal radiator. I want to add, this was a conversation in one of the alliance groups the other day, that we don't fit designer radiators because so many reasons. The substrate rarely takes them. You tend to be faffing for ages to get them to fit. Most of them come from China, which means they're full of swarf. You put them in the system, and 2 weeks later, it fucks the system up. So, that's why. But again, I encourage everyone. There's so much information in the podcasts that me and Wayne like to talk. So we could go on and on and on about things like that for sure. My advice really is to just start working your way through all the podcasts, and then any questions. Mine and Wayne's contacts are on the website. So if you want to just reach out to us, and we'll answer any questions. But there's plenty of lads in the group that have come from not really making any money to really progressing and moving forward. And absolutely changing the business really. But and then PA it's always a bit of a shock for some customers, because how it is. Customers go, oh, just swap that rad there, or while you're here, can you just swap that rad, thinking it's literally just unclip or some shit like that. You know what I mean? Like, but again, like I say, I don't want to go into too many various things, because we've got a whole podcast where I'm talking as much as Wayne's talked tonight, really, about how as you start to make more money and you get a bit busier, you can then actually start to handpick the work that you do. So rather than saying yes to everything, which is what most guys do, and they think that's the right thing to do, you'll start to handpick the things that either make you the most money, make the business grow the fastest, or will make the business grow to the greatest scale, or arguably, like Tyler's just mentioned, removing the things that you don't like doing. So what he's referring to is a joke I made, which is when I was on the tools, I always hated fitting radiators. I don't know why. Some guys love it. Some guys can do it in minutes. I just really hated doing it. I don't know why I just did. I put that pricing structure in place. So at least if I'm going to send one of the engineers out to do it, then at least we make obviously some good profit. There is again a sub context to that, because fitting radiators isn't really growing the business. So again, Wayne was asking about pricing for servicing for a heating business, because it's annually recurring work is an area, a particular job that you want to try and target, because it allows you to grow the business year on year. So Lachlan, I'm guessing is how you say it, maybe?
Yeah, I've seen that question. So the short answer is currently no. I didn't actually know that Scotland had a different tax rate. I've just Googled it and realised that they do. I can't say your first name, Mr. Liddle. I will make sure that is added over the next couple of days, mate. Just so I presumed that the UK was as a whole and just had one rule. So I need to just do a little bit of research and get that added, mate. So I'll make sure that is buttoned up as soon as possible for you. All right.
Yeah, Lawrence, we use something called Quotium. So I'll be running the webinar next month on Quotium. It's absolutely transformed our business, and I think it can transform yours. Two big things for that. So if you've liked this, try not to miss Quotient, because like Wayne was saying before, you can't just get up tomorrow and double your prices. You need to add a bit more value to the business, and there's lots of ways you can do that. One of them is those initial stages. So whether that's phone contact, such as, when having a lady in the office, or having your wife, girlfriend, sister, mum, auntie, whatever it might be, picking up the phone instead. We discussed that on one of the podcasts, but one of the next point of contact is arguably the quote. So we use Quotient because it's, for want of a better word, quite a pretty looking software. You can put pictures in there, so you can basically you can preload it, fire it out quickly. It's optimized for mobile as well, so you could basically, if you, let's say you went to a boiler breakdown, for example, boilers are write-off. There's too much cost to it to fix it. Maybe it needs a pump and a diverter and a few other things in a right-hand block or whatever, like a junior. Needs a few things. It's 800 quid's worth of repairs. You think, well, we're probably better just pricing a new boiler. You could go and jump in the van, drive around the corner, grab a coffee from Mackey's, pull your phone out, and you've probably already pre-built, and I'll show you on the next webinar how to get it set up, or what it looks like when it's set up. So you can pre-populate it with, like, say, a price for a 25 kilowatt boiler, a price for a 30 kilowatt boiler, and then various sub options. Again, something that Wayne was always a big advocate for, such as having 3 options. So if you guys fit Worcester, for example, you might have a 1,000, a 4,000, 8,000. You can literally sit in the van. It's already pre-built, providing it's like a horizontal flue going straight out the wall. You can do a like for like. You can have that quote out to them in probably less than 60 seconds because you've already put the work in to get it ready. So you can then just send that, get on your way. And one of the big things that we found from our research is people going out to quote, then they leave the job site, and then the customer's having to chase the customer up. This is a piece of software that will stop that from happening, because it's pre-built and ready to go, and you simply choose the quote you want to send. So, for example, again, we will be doing David. It's not in the schedule yet, but we will be doing.
Just quickly to David's point there, so the webinars that we do, or that we're starting to do now are, yes, we will more than likely address that, but we do a weekly call for our members where we discuss things like employing staff and all of everything we spoke about on a weekly basis on a Wednesday night. So if that is of interest to you, obviously just get in touch with one of us, mate. All right.
Yeah. And yeah, go and have a listen to the podcasts. I think is probably the best.
That's always the best place to start, isn't it? Because it's you can consume it at your leisure as well, it just makes life a lot easier, doesn't it, to be able to listen to a lot of information as you're driving around and stuff. Right, we've been on an hour. I wanted to try and keep it to an hour, so unless there is any pressing questions, we can continue the chat. We'll get you added to all of the WhatsApp group when we get off, and we can continue this chat. And like Andy said, we've got plenty more webinars booked. I've posted the link in that shows the next 3. So we've got 1 a month up till April so far, but we will plan if we get the engagement that we've had today. Then it's a no-brainer for us to help as many people as we can and do as many more of these as possible. So David is my better business half, Wayne and Andy. Oh, what? He snuck in under the radar, did he? Right. On that note, Andy, any closing words, or should we wrap up?
No, I think that's it. Cool. Yeah. As I say, just there's a new podcast released every week. As I said before, it's completely free. We do a new one every week. The one that's being released this week is actually a bit of an exciting one because it as a showcase of one of the mentees of Off the Tools, showing his progression. He's progressed his business so far that he's actually bought the company that was his rival in his area. And yeah, that's an exciting one to listen to. But yeah, they're all completely free and new on every week. Lots of the questions that have been asked tonight are covered in those podcasts. So yeah, just work your way through them.
Right. It's been an absolute pleasure, guys. Hopefully see you all in the WhatsApp group after, and we can continue the chat. And there's some contact details for myself and Andy, but ultimately just go to the website offthetools.co.uk to keep up to date with everything that we're doing. Hopefully I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm sure Andy has too, and I really hope that you found some value in tonight's session and look forward to plenty more to come in the future. Have a good one, lads.